Hi, Cancer Sun and Rising. Welcome to your June 2023 Astro Update. It's Raina here. Well, first and foremost, I want to thank the person who called to my attention that I hadn't posted a horoscope for Cancer for June. And it's especially a glaring omission because this is the solar return month of Cancer. So you guys are really awesome about that. I I do things pretty in the moment, and I kind of alternate between horoscopes and tarot readings and not really making my list and checking it twice too much. But I thought I'd post it, so I apologize for the late posting and for the omission. So yeah, this is your solar return. Of course, not all of you have your birthday in June. Most of you have it in July, but you should start to feel energized at the time of the summer solstice or winter down under. And where I live in the Midwest, it's going to be at 9:57 a.m. Central Standard Time. The solstices and equinoxes are power periods because when the sun goes into a cardinal sign, in this case Cancer, there is this movement because the cardinal signs are the catalysts, the doers of the zodiac. So the seasons that they represent change and, more things happening. So as a collective, we may see that things start to speed up more. Who knows? We'll see. I really love, that time of the summer solstice because I think of Midsummer's Night Dream and that idea of the heart of summer, the lushness. I'm recording this at the very beginning of June, and living in the Chicago area, it's usually not like super hot until the end of June, going into July, and it is so freaking hot. It's like, I can't wait for it to cool down next week, but it's like in the upper 80s and humid. So I'm feeling the midsummer vibes already. On the 3rd of the month, and as I record this, it's the 2nd of the month, right before this is occurring, there is a full moon at 13 degrees of Sag. Sag for Cancer is the 6th house. This is the house of health and the house of your employment, okay? And Cancers tend to be, as far as I'm concerned, I think a lot of Cancers are worrywarts about anything that threatens their sense of security. So I'm going to tread very lightly on this because, yes, of course, there's always the possibility at the full moon that somebody might end their employment. And it doesn't have to be getting fired. It could simply be that they storm off and they are fed up with whatever's going on. But there's also the possibility of getting a promotion. I always think about this person who wrote to me once and they said, so you're telling us that either I'm going to get fired or I'm going to get a promotion. It just seems so extreme and completely opposite each other that the person couldn't understand. So I always think about that and get a kick out of that. Yeah, I mean, some of these transits could be two completely different things, but on polar ends of that, because the full moon can bring something to fruition. And in this case, and also make the person somehow gain recognition. So it's like putting you in the spotlight. But in this case, it's in the workplace or with your employer. And that could be about, whatever your talents are. If you're someone who has like a big company and you've never met the owner or whatever, then the word could get out. You could do something that really impresses the suits and who knows. But yeah, and the full moon brings something to its apex, the heightened state, and it could be like your position in the workplace. Remember that Cancer is ruled by the moon, so the moon holds a special place in your heart and how it influences you too. Okay, let me see. On the 5th, Venus goes into Leo. This is significant because Venus is a very short transit of 3.5 weeks, and yet it's going to be in Leo for 4 months. Why? Because in late July, Venus is going retrograde. So even before the retrograde, in the shadow period before and after a retrograde, the planet is not advancing at the same rate. It's slower. So that's what draws it out in that particular sign. But what that can translate to is that it hangs around a certain sector in your life more than it normally does. Well, in this case, Cancer, we're talking about the second house of earned income. So that is really awesome. And Venus rules the second house in astrology under the sign of Taurus. So this could be very good for the financial side of life. And, this is only 2 days after that full moon in your 6th house. So again, that might be getting a raise. Okay. And I'm not going to talk about the Venus retrograde here because that's for the July forecast, but I just wanted to point that out, that Venus is going to be here for a long time. When Venus is in the second house, it's in its own domain, which means that it specializes in this area of money. So suffice it to say, it knows what to do. In the case of Venus, I've been listening to spiritual teachers talk about I guess you would call it like the divine feminine, divine masculine energy, and the yang or masculine energy is associated with Mars. So when Mars is in the second house, you can expect a lot of action. So the person says, maybe I'm going to get another job. Maybe I'm going to work overtime. They're exerting effort. With Venus, it's the feminine energy, so it is passive, and that means it's magnetic. So when you draw something to you, Venus is the attractor. That is what is going on. In this particular case, and I hope I've emphasized this for some of the other signs, you have Venus and Mars both in this area. And so, this is not super unusual because they are personal planets, and they, even though they can be far away from each other, they can also travel very closely. And Mars is more effort, and Venus, like I said, is more of the magnetism. And to me also, the laid back attitude that the chill attitude that really may be more about getting, about attracting money than the person who just puts 100%, 10% effort into something, but feels like they're working very hard and just breaking even. The Venus energy is like, maybe you could call it confidence. Maybe, you talk about these magical workings. How does it happen? Well, anyway, this could be very good in the next several months, or, like 4 months as it pertains to your finances. But I will get more into how the Venus retrograde may affect you next month. On the 11th, Pluto goes back into Capricorn. So this is your opposite sign. I'll talk about that in a second. And Mercury goes into Gemini. Mercury goes into your 12th house. So your dreams may be very vivid. You might have lucid dreams or be very, if you're an artistic type of person, even if you just do it for a hobby, you may have some amazing ideas. And by the way, if you're doing it as a hobby and you have these ideas, maybe you have an idea like, hey, I'm going to sell this, my paintings or whatever online. Don't second guess yourself because you may be more psychic at this time with the 12th house, and you might have some very divinely inspired ideas. And if you second guess yourself, that would be tragic. Some of you actually have your natal Mercury in Gemini, you sun signs, cancers. Watch out for fears, maybe like from past lives, or your like unconscious mind could be very awakened, but you can't trace if you feel like anxious or anything like that. It could be that you are, experiencing things on a very, very deep level that connect to past lives, but you can't put your finger on it. And sometimes these come through as triggers. So sometimes when we're just walking around, we may see something and it feels familiar, like a deja vu experience, but it's really connected to a past life. I've certainly had this, and I don't say it has to be when Mercury's in the 12th house, but it could be more likely, I suppose. But anyway, Pluto is also going back into Capricorn. It will also do so in 2024 at some point, and then fully go into Aquarius for 20 years. Well, Aquarius for you is the 8th house, and so that's Pluto's domain. It could be quite an excavation for the next 20 years. When it goes back into Capricorn in that marriage sector, you may have some issues come back if you are married, coupled, that seem like power struggles. But you're being asked to go within. Even if you swear up and down that it is your partner who is the controlling one, then your goal must be, what did I see in this person? Why am I feeling stuck? Why do I feel like I have to endure this? And put the ball back in your court, but it's also like transforming you so that you are empowering yourself, so that you don't feel like you are helpless and there's nothing you can do about the situation. On the 17th, we have a Saturn retrograde. Saturn is in Pisces at this time, and it goes retrograde at 7 degrees of Pisces. For you, this is the 9th house. This is Sag's domain. Very expansive, and it's also the house of higher learning. So Saturn here could put the kibosh on college. You may think twice about it. Maybe you're earning a degree, and you might not even be 22 years old. You might be 42 years old. And you're thinking, what am I doing? Like, do I really think that I should continue with this? Maybe you've had to sacrifice a lot and you're not sure it's worth it. So you will see, maybe pay attention to any signs for alignment or misalignment as it pertains to synchronicity. On the 18th, we have a new moon at 26 degrees of Gemini. This is going to be in that second house of earned income. I mean, not the second house of earned income, the 12th house. And that can be very, maybe it's very subtle, this new beginning. It's possible that you come in contact with a new spiritual center, a new church that you feel that you want to go to. But I think more than a church, it would be some kind of a spiritual center, because the 12th house is more about mysticism, or maybe it's a spiritual teacher that you meet, or that you want to, some kind of a ceremony. Especially, I would say, if it pertains to your personal alchemy, something that you are really changing within yourself. The eighth house is about alchemy, and this is where you're going to have Pluto for 20 straight years, but the 12th house can also be spiritual. It's a lot of it is very altruistic. So it's possible that if you are learning something, it's not for any kind of certificate. I do believe that in some cases it will be, because some of the topics that could be associated with it are like past life regression. Reading the Akashic records would be a natural for the 12th house. And cancers are naturally intuitive, or even if you have Cancer rising, you're ruled by the moon, so you are naturally connected with intuition. On the 21st, we have the summer solstice at 9:57 a.m. Central Standard Time. If you live in Europe and elsewhere, it'll be in the afternoon or evening. And so this is your solar return. On the 26th, Mercury joins the sun in that first house, and it is possible that you are promoting yourself in some way. With Mercury in the first, you're selling yourself. Now you could be dating, getting to know someone old-fashioned style. You could be, so that means talking, going out to eat, not just skipping the formalities and jumping into bed or something like that. It's much more what we would call wholesome, innocent types of interactions. I don't know if this is a movement, but there are people who operate that way for sure. So on the 30th, Neptune goes retrograde. Well, Neptune is in that 9th house. So Saturn retrograde is about maybe easing up on some of the work that you've been doing, because you may be rethinking it. A Neptune retrograde is like a reality check. If you have been, idealizing a spiritual teacher or some sort of practice, you may see the negative side of it and be quite disappointed. But it doesn't have to be the end of the world, because if you shift your mindset, you may find that the individual never claimed, you just assumed that that would be the case. And so it's really a time, some people who are very idealistic, getting disillusioned is a big deal. But if the person is forewarned, they're forearmed. So realizing that there might be some of this being done by design, but you don't have to participate. You can use your intellect to kind of answer your own questions, so to speak. And the Neptune retrograde can just sort of, expose what is going on. Okay, well, that's what I have for you, Cancer. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.